From ABC News, a special program.
You have to consider that racism is built into the very fabric of the American society.
Can you tell me why she's the ugly girl?
I don't know those people.
You see, as long as society feels we're a drain, then we're not going to be liked.
We once lived the American dream.
Are there any men in your neighborhood that you look up to?
No.
It really hurts, given where we claim we are as a nation.
Good evening. I'm Carole Simpson, and with me are my colleagues Charles Thomas and George Strait. Two important chapters in the Black American experience are associated with Abraham Lincoln and this memorial to him: the emancipation of the slaves, our ancestors, and the famed I Have a Dream speech by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
In the next hour, we will introduce you to a number of Black Americans, winners and losers in pursuit of that dream. The people you will meet are not athletes, celebrities, or politicians. They are people you don't normally see or hear on television.
Charles, they are people that represent the great diversity that is Black life in this country, from children who are just beginning the experience to elders who now look back in triumph. And while we have had victories and made progress in America, we still have not reached the objective envisioned by Dr. King right here 26 years ago. We still struggle to be judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skin.
Color. How do Black children develop a positive self-image in a society that's predominantly white? Dr. Margaret Beal Spencer is one of several researchers who has studied this. She shows pictures to Black children ages 3 to 12, pictures of Black and white characters. They have identical facial features, hair, and clothing. The only difference is skin color. Dr. Spencer asks the children to choose.
Najiba, I have a picture now of two girls, and everyone says that one girl is very pretty. Which is the pretty girl?
That.
Can you tell me why?
Because she has different skin, and I like the way she dresses.
Oh, okay. Point to the ugly girl for me. Can you tell me why she's the ugly girl?
Because everybody hits her and they don't like her.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Chandler, can you tell me which is the dirty boy? Can you tell me why?
Because he's not the same color he's supposed to be.
Oh, okay. All right. Come on and have a seat. Okay? Now, my research started 20 years ago, and here today in 1989, the stereotypes are still in place. Stereotypes which suggest that Black people are very negative generally, not very bright, not very attractive, etc. And that whites are still all these very positive things and those things alone. Ebony, how are you today? It means for me that we have not come very far as a people. Okay, what's associated with the color white? Yes. In society, power.
I want you to buy 20,000 shares of Blue Star at 15 1/8, 3/8 tops.
Attractiveness. Black children watch more TV, unfortunately, than any other minority group. And they're bombarded, therefore, with all these fast-paced images, which for the most part leaves them invisible. They don't see themselves, and they're not even aware of it.
Maxie's got the best hair.
Maxie. Which is the pretty girl?
The one on the right, most likely.
The one on the right, most likely? And yes. Why would you say that?
Well, to me, she has the prettiest hair.
For older children who are now at a point in their thinking that they understand that what they are saying is in conflict with how they feel about themselves, it's very difficult.
This is hard.
I didn't hear you.
This is hard.
Oh, it's hard? You can virtually see the anxiety on their faces.
I can't decide.
And it hurts. You know, as a researcher, as a mother, as a citizen in this country, it really hurts, you know, given where we claim we are as a nation. Okay, that's fine. Now, why is that one the dirty boy?
Because you can't tell whether he's dirty or not because he's black.
Black parents have the same task that all parents have in this country, to raise effective, competent, psychologically healthy children. I tell parents, when they buy those little books, get a 25-cent box of crayons and color those pictures, the hair and the skin, etc., and explain to children why they're doing it. Most often, the positive sense of self, it comes from the family, comes from the church, comes from the community.
Boys and girls, today we're going to play a game. It's a game about building a dream. Name 7 black leaders.
Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks.
Okay, let's do it one at a time. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Frederick Douglass.
They need cultural values to help them deal with whatever they are struggling with at that moment. Point to the smart boy for me.
It would most likely be him.
Okay, now why is he the smart boy?
Because he looks very, very smart.
Point to the picture for me. Okay, very good. Now tell me, why is she the very pretty girl, Denise?
Because she's black and she's beautiful.
Because she's what?
She's black and she's beautiful.
We have a lot of work to do. And the first thing is to acknowledge that there are some serious problems. And that problem still surrounds the color of race and racism in this country.
Black in White America, brought to you by S.C. Johnson Wax, makers of Lemon Pledge.
In 1968, the Kerner Commission, after investigating racial disorders, concluded that America was moving toward 2 separate and unequal societies, one white and one black. 21 years later, Black America is moving toward 2 separate and unequal societies, the blacks who have made it and those who have not. And even if some of us do seem to be living the American dream, racism is inescapable. We still carry the burden of color. To most white Americans, Howard Holly has made it. He grew up in the public housing projects of Norfolk, Virginia. Today, he's a district manager for the Xerox Corporation in San Diego, California.
I'm going to really use the big hit list and focus on the 5 XAMP and Excel accounts.
Despite his career achievements, Howard feels being black has held him back.
Back when I first started in business, I was directed to a Fortune 500 company on Park Avenue and told that everyone started in the mailroom, so I started in the mailroom. And then when I was delivering mail one day, or a few months later, I saw a new face in one of the departments. And I said, where did that face come from? They weren't in the mailroom. And then I found out that it isn't, in fact, where everyone starts. And that's when I began to realize that the things were going to be a little different.
Do we have a deadline on this LCC thing?
Yes, the 1st.
Howard credits the civil rights movement for breaking down barriers.
I do not believe I would necessarily be in the company were it not for affirmative action. I believe that affirmative action played a very important role in the success that blacks have achieved in the past 20, 25 years.
At 7 o'clock, you're going to go straight to the JA
luncheon.
Even though Howard is a respected professional, a husband, a father, when he walks down the street, he's just another black man, usually regarded with suspicion and fear.
I might be walking close to somebody and noticing that they'll pull their pocketbook here and go like this. Now, 5 other men just walked by. What's the difference between me and the other 5 as to why now there's a need to put a karate grip on your pocketbook?
Howard and his wife Barbara are a real-life version of The Cosby Show. They are among the 45,000 black families in the United States with incomes of more than $100,000. But this is not a situation comedy. Unlike their TV counterparts, they are struggling to maintain their black identity in a world that doesn't always value it. The Hollies live in this $500,000 home in an exclusive, predominantly white neighborhood in the hills high above San Diego. Not because they wanted to live with whites, but because they couldn't find the house they wanted in a black neighborhood.
I think we wanted to live and want to live the American dream.
This is 2,100 square feet.
Barbara Holly is a real estate agent.
Like about what you had in mind?
For the Hollies to work at the jobs they find most rewarding and to live in the kind of neighborhood they find most desirable, they had to pay a personal price. Isolation from the black community. A big problem for their 17-year-old daughter, Alicia.
I don't think really in my younger childhood there was anything specifically that said, you're black versus everybody else being white. I don't remember that.
Out of 2,000 students at Torrey Pines High School, Alicia is one of 6 blacks.
Yeah. Are you guys gonna have another study group though?
Here she confronts the dilemma of straddling 2 worlds, one white and one black.
Most of my friends are white. And when I'm with white friends, I don't think that they would really understand what exactly I'm trying to say. I mean, how could they possibly understand exactly what I'm going through when they're not going through it themselves?
This is Alicia's other world, where she met most of her black friends. Jack and Jill is one of the nation's oldest black social organizations. Jack and Jill fulfills the need of upwardly mobile black families who crave contact with other blacks. Here they teach their children values and racial pride.
Brian Babb for academic achievement. Congratulations, Brian.
The people at this school used to be white, upper middle class. This is now changing. There are a lot of other people coming in, and it's something that our school needs to face and think about and accept is how...
At Alicia's high school, white students are curious about blacks, so much like themselves and yet so different. Her white classmates wondered what she thought of the portrayal of blacks on television.
When you show me, African Americans that are just pimps and just hookers, that's to me, I mean, yes, I know that goes on, but that goes on in everybody's race. So when you just show me that, I mean, that's not realistic to me because I don't know those people. I can't really identify with any of those people. So when you show me doctors and lawyers and things, those are people that I'm used to meeting that are black.
It saddens me to know that my children, or in my lifetime, that I will not be able to be in a world where people just accept me for me, and that my children will have to continue to go through life with the same kinds of burdens that we've had. Of course, you always want things to be better for your children.
I don't think racism is something that a person can insulate themselves against when it lives in someone else. So how can I possibly insulate myself against what you may choose to do, say, act, be, or whatever? So no, I don't think there's any of us who can insulate, regardless of what levels we might achieve.
How do you do? Gerald, Joshua Smith. All right.
Race will never be an impediment, no matter what it is to someone else. If I have someplace I need to go, I'll get there. If I've got to overcome race, I'll get there.
Now, some of you laugh about that.
Joshua Smith is the chief executive officer of a company that grossed $60 million last year. He feels that economic clout is the weapon blacks need to combat racism.
Blacks are not in business. We don't think entrepreneurship. It's not a major segment. We are consumers. We spend our time on taking that professional salary and buying better clothes and bigger houses and better looking cars and impressing people. And I think that we're paying for it.
He used to work for somebody else, but now he works for himself. For the last 11 years, he's headed Maxima, a computer services company headquartered in Rockville, Maryland. But his success doesn't shelter him from racist insults.
People have said when they come to this company, and I think it's a rather insulting remark, oh, this doesn't look like a black company.
Are we all set?
Yes, we are.
Well, what does a black company look like?
Josh gained entry into the business world through a federal program for minority businesses.
But the interesting thing is it's a 1 1/3 times greater.
By 1986, he was out of that program and on his own. Maxima, with offices in 46 locations, is the 9th largest black-owned business in the country. Josh is highly critical of today's black leaders who, he says, focus more on what government can do for them rather than what they can do for themselves.
We needed those to lead us out of the woods, but we're now at the river. And we need to learn how to swim, and it's an economic river. And, you know, if I'm drowning and you can't swim, leave me the hell alone.
See, like, if I do Atlanta, Dad, I'm going to do deck maintenance because, you know.
Josh's son, Jay, runs the company's Atlanta office. Jay is inheriting both his father's firm and his economic philosophy.
Why don't we do that? Why don't you let me talk to the people?
Given Josh's emphasis on entrepreneurship, it's no surprise that he's a Republican, an active supporter and friend of President Bush.
We've got to trade that Rolex for a Rolodex of investments.
Josh travels the country, often preaching his feisty brand of economic evangelism.
If it's on your back, it's not in the bank. And if it's on your ass, it is not called an asset.
You see, as long as society feels we're a drain, then we're not going to be liked. But when we turn that around and contribute, we're going to be desired. And I think the Vietnamese have proven that. Nobody talks about those boat people. Now everyone sees the valedictorians in the classes. They see the business people, the role models, the image of the Vietnamese, and I applaud them.
We've done a lot of things which, if emulated, can work for other people.
Josh wants blacks to duplicate the success other ethnic groups have achieved. But he worries that it's too late for those trapped in America's inner cities.
I see a class of people that potentially is written off. I see black people in this country suffering incredible and insurmountable loss in both people and in terms of future. And that's real. I'm scared, not for Joshua Smith and Joshua Smith's family, but I'm scared because I'm proud of being black. I'm proud of being an African American, because that's what God said I would be. And unless we do something now, I think we're going to witness the greatest setback in the history of mankind.
Racial progress is an empty phrase for millions of our people, Black Americans who live in some of the most deplorable conditions in the industrialized world. They still wait for this nation's economic prosperity to trickle down to them. The worst off are locked in a downward spiral of drugs, crime, and violence. It is a separate America called the underclass, found in every major city. Chicago, Illinois, an economic fortress in the Midwest. But within this city are neighborhoods a world apart from the glitter and wealth. Places rarely visited by white or black outsiders, afraid just to pass through here. The Wabash Building is a housing project near the end of the line on the city's south side. It could be anywhere in urban America. A place where criminals and victims are imprisoned together, where darkened hallways reek of garbage and urine. 20 years ago, the Tenant Association ran the building. Today, it is run by drug dealers, and no outsiders enter without risking their lives. But the people who live here call it home. Welcome to their world.
For most people, as simple as that. No matter how you put it, They can laugh about it, whatever they want to. This is it.
Do the drug dealers run neighborhoods like this?
Majority of the drug dealers around here, they don't live here.
That's right.
You understand?
Yeah.
They come as far as 95th to the south,
And
22nd to the north. They come here and set up shop and sell their dope. Then they go home with their big bankroll.
Is it realistic to expect that you could walk into a development one day, this development, any development, and not see the drug dealers?
No, it's not
no. You can have an education in the United States. You can have all of that, you know. But if you don't have no money, you really don't have nothing.
It's the have and the have-not. And that's what the bottom line is. I mean, you talk about the drugs. You understand? Who brings the drugs into the country?
And you can put it in this way too.
Who brings it here? Blacks don't bring it.
Certainly no one that lives here.
Okay, then. You understand? It's a genocide. And we're caught up in it.
Some blacks believe this is indeed genocide, asking why a nation that put a man on the moon cannot solve the problems that plague inner cities. They say it's a conspiracy to eliminate them. The civil rights movement has made little difference here. Even the NAACP building locks its doors, securing itself from the crime and violence engulfing the neighborhood. At Chicago's Southside Gospel Church, worshipers rarely raise their voices for social causes. Here they pray for survival.
Amen. You may be seated. Today, we're giving special recognition to the Dunn family. Mother, Judy Dunn, daughter, Ellen Dunn, daughter, June Dunn, son, Stephen Dunn.
The Dunn children are caught in a struggle between the values taught in church and the values learned on the streets around their home at the Wabash building. Their mother is 34-year-old Judy Dunn. She was abandoned, grew up in a foster home, and had not finished high school when she gave birth to her first child at age 16. Judy, who has never been married, supports herself with welfare and food stamps and takes pride in the small salary she earns at Burger King.
I like to work. I don't like staying home. It's boring, you know, sitting at the house watching TV. It's not even worth it, you know. You can be doing something else with your life.
Judy's 16-year-old daughter, June, is also an unwed mother. She already has a baby named Kiana and is expecting another child this month.
Will you be able to go to school?
Uh-huh.
Even with a young baby?
Uh-huh.
2 young babies?
Yeah.
How are you going to do that?
Get a babysitter.
What do you want to be when you grow up and get out of school?
An artist.
You like to draw?
Yeah.
How much money would you like to make in a year?
About $2,000.
$2,000 a year? Would that be enough for you and Kiana and the new baby to live?
It might be.
June has no clue that $2,000 a year isn't enough to survive anywhere in America, not even in her world. And her world is the Wabash building, where 80% of households are headed by single women. June's older sister, 18-year-old Ellen Dunn, is different. She just graduated from high school.
I'm the only one out this building, and my friend Tina, that don't have no kids right now. Everybody in this building is pregnant by somebody in this building.
You're not on drugs, you don't have any children, and you're not pregnant. Why not?
I don't know. I guess I just know when to say no to boys, I guess.
Why not have kids now?
No, I said I was going to have my kids back when I'm 25, 26.
Why do you want to wait so long?
Because I'll probably be settled down in my own house, my own job. Then I think I'll be ready for some kids.
The only boy in the Dunn family is 13-year-old Stephen. He fantasizes about a better life, like any other kid in America.
Describe how you'd live if you were rich, where you would live.
In a big house, big car, nice yard, pool, women, jewelry.
It wouldn't look like where you live now. You'd be happy?
Yeah, as long as I have friends.
I'm sorry.
Stephen enjoys shooting pool at a nearby boys' club with his best friend and next-door neighbor, Sam.
That's why you lose.
Stephen has not seen his father in years and says his only role model is his mother.
Are there any men in your neighborhood that you look up to?
No.
What are some of the things that men in your neighborhood do?
Sell drugs, most of them. Most of the people come to them. They know when they're standing there.
So how does that make you feel? Does it bother you at all? Or?
Yeah, bothers because they're in front of my door and stuff. Be hard to walk past.
Do you wish that they weren't there?
Yes.
Police make frequent drug arrests outside the Wabash building, but their efforts barely make a dent because the drug trade is the #1 employer in the neighborhood, offering teenagers $200 to $300 a day. It's a dangerous business, and guns are used to settle disputes.
Anybody can get guns and have guns. Anybody in the building, if they want it.
Can you get a gun?
Me? Yeah, I can.
We can't keep it.
What are the kinds of guns you've been around?
22, 25, 38, 45, a gauge, and a pump.
Who has these guns?
A person in our building.
Drugs and guns are a lethal combination. The #1 killer of young black males is homicide, and 94% of the murders are committed by another black person. For Steve and Sam, going to and from home means a walk past armed drug dealers every day.
I think if I move, that might stop it. I'm not saying, because anywhere you go, it's with dope. Anywhere you move to, south, east, or west, it's still dope.
The kids come in contact every day with people who sell drugs. Do you think it's possible that a drug dealer could have more control over one of your children than you do?
Yes, it's possible. Yes.
Is it happening?
Yes. Not only to master every other kid. You know, it's possible.
The father of June's first child is dead. He was shot and killed 2 months after Kiana's birth. June worries about her new boyfriend, 17-year-old Andre, the father of her second child. June says Andre is a drug dealer.
He could just be somewhere just standing on the street, talking to somebody, and somebody might come up and shoot him for nothing.
Have you learned to just accept death as part of living?
Yeah, because everybody gonna have to die one day.
June's sister, Ellen, has faced the same dilemma. I asked her what her former boyfriend did.
Sell drugs.
I get the sense you don't like drugs.
I don't like people selling drugs. They can get killed over there.
Do you think a drug dealer would make a good husband?
I don't know. I hope not.
Do you live prepared for the worst? June and Ellen say they both date drug dealers.
You have to pray every day. When they go outside, you got to pray. Hope God look over them and watch them. That's my only hope. I pray.
Judy's fears became real one night last March when Ellen was caught in a fight between rival gang members. One of them pinned her down at gunpoint.
He was clicking a gun at me, and then no more bullets come out.
You mean the guy was standing there over you with a gun pointed at you while you were on the floor?
Right.
Pulling the trigger?
Right. And I got up and I felt the back of my neck, and I saw there was blood, and I just knew I had got shot. Police came, and they put me in the ambulance. I seen my mama, she started crying. I started crying smoke, because I thought I was going to die that day.
The nightmare continued 2 weeks later when Stephen and June's boyfriend Andre were playing with guns.
when I came from off the bus stop, there was the little boy told me that he had got shot, and I prayed that he, let him be alive. And they told me that they would have to, when they rushed him to the hospital and stuff, they had to do surgery on him and they said they had to take bullet fragment out of his brains because the bullet had went through his head, through his eyes, and it's still in his jawbone. They weren't able to take that out.
How did it affect your eye?
Blinded.
Does that make you angry?
I don't pay much attention to it. I forget about it most of the time. I get used to just use one.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
A doctor.
How are you going to get to be a doctor?
By completing college and medical school.
Stephen appears to have overcome his physical and emotional scars, and only 2 months after the shooting fulfilled a dream, his 8th grade graduation. Though Stephen is an honor student, what he hopes to achieve will be difficult. Chicago's public school system has been rated among the worst in the country, and the dropout rate is as high as 65%. Judy Dunn has the highest hopes for her children, but no delusions about the battles she and her family face.
When you look at television and you see the Cosby Show and you see how they portray a certain family, do you feel cheated?
No. No, because that's not real. That's fake. That's not the real world.
What's the real world?
The one I'm living in now.
One of the tragedies of the increasing separation of America's black communities is that not only are we losing touch with one another, but we're losing touch with some of the things that have bound us together as a people for the last 300 years. Institutions and heroes, things that have served as a foundation for the millions of blacks who have made it, can serve as a source of strength for the millions who have yet to succeed. But many of us have lost touch with our history, and that's a threat, because if we as a people don't know where we've been, we can't know where we're going.
This past May, a 108-year unbroken tradition of excellence continued. Tuskegee Institute, founded by Booker T. Washington to lift the veil of ignorance from freed slaves, graduated 329 men and women. This small Alabama college teaches that self-reliance and pride can protect a person against the ravages of racial prejudice. Generations of black scholars and fighters have been trained here. Some are among America's greatest heroes, men who fought to keep free a country in which they were not completely free. One of those men was honored this year, a man known as the Chief.
Charles Alfred Anderson, better known as Chief Anderson. Self-taught pilot, recognized as father of black aviation. You trained the nucleus of the Tuskegee Airmen, who became the nation's first black fighter pilots in the famous 99th Pursuit Squadron.
The 99th was not originally designed to show that blacks could fly. It was first designed to show that blacks did not have the capability to fly. That we had to disprove. That, I think, we proved it.
Why? Why do you have to disprove it?
Why do I have to disprove it?
Yeah.
To live here in peace.
What do you mean to live here in peace? You could have lived here in peace without having to fly an airplane.
We could not have lived with pride. Had we failed at that, we would have had no pride whatever. It would have followed us for the rest of our lives.
It was an experiment that the nation was watching, and in particular, all of our people were watching with great expectations.
Yesterday, I fulfilled one of my ambitions as a combat pilot. I got one airplane. Two Foxes came on my right. I turned right and put up a stone wall of bullets.
These were the men of the Fighting 99th, a squadron of black fighter pilots which received little official recognition, except for this 1944 Air Force film, narrated by then-actor Ronald Reagan.
They were pioneers, and no pioneer has it easy. They fought lies, they fought heartbreak, and they won. Now they fight the enemy on his own soil.
These men not only fought an enemy that threatened their country, but fought a theory that threatened their people. This official War Department document from 1925 concluded that scientifically, blacks were cowards, immoral, innately lazy, and had smaller brains, so were inherently inferior and thought to be incapable of flying complex fighter airplanes. To prove that theory, the Army sent almost 1,000 young blacks to flight school at Tuskegee. But they didn't fail. They graduated and succeeded. Their job was to protect American bombers, and not one was ever shot down while the airmen flew cover. These young black pilots had earned respect, but only in the air. Colonel Eugene Carter was one of the original members of the 99th.
And you flew behind enemy lines, all kinds of danger, yet when you returned, what was it like?
You were still a black person, whether you were a pilot or non-pilot, whether you were captain, major, or sergeant. So that stigma you couldn't shake off.
You're being nice. You weren't treated as a black person. You were treated like a nigger.
Well, okay, yes.
40 miles away from here, and it's still there, was Maxwell Field, where they trained white pilots. There was a quota system, we found out later. No class graduating from Tuskegee was to exceed 10% of the corresponding class coming out of Maxwell Field. So we would have horrendous washout rates in the last phase of the training at Tuskegee to meet that quota. And as Gene said, we washed out better pilots here than they were graduating in Maxwell Field.
I've seen a time when I couldn't even get a ride in an airplane. No, we don't take you up. And I've been chased off airport fields. Let me just chased off. Don't land here. Don't go. You got already landed. Say get out. Get off the field. And of course, what I had to do, I had to go and buy an airplane. And say, hell, I'm gonna learn anyhow.
Candidates for the degree Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Science Engineering.
Without that kind of spirit, America would have lost a whole generation of heroes and patriots. Racism can exact a heavy price.
We're wasting billions of dollars at this very moment by not tapping into the underutilized potential of minorities and poor whites, and we've got to stop that foolishness. For history tells us that genius is no respecter of race or sex, and that the discoverer of a cure for the common cold or cancer or AIDS or the inventor of a new VCR format or a new computer chip may be at this very moment in an Alabama housing project or San Antonio bar.
This idea of believing in the dream, the American dream, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, equal justice for all. You believe in that, don't you?
Yes,
And you were willing to give your life for it.
That's the way it's supposed to be, that's right.
The spirit of the Fighting 99th has been passed on. At the controls of that F-16 is Commander Chuck Nesby, Jr.
That's flying, boy. That's flying.
Wow.
That's flying.
Clear 3 numbers for the break.
Bandit 3, Roger, check lows down, wind 2908, clear 2 lane, runway 15.
3. Bandit 3 with the gear, full stop.
Bandit 3, Roger.
Tuskegee Airman Charles Nesby Sr. beams with the pride of a father and a tradition.
When Chuck was going through flight training at Pensacola, and then going to the dining hall at Pensacola, you have to go down this long corridor. And on the walls on either side of the corridor are very fine paintings of naval heroes. And of course, they're all white. And I thought to myself, as I saw our other naval officers bring their families here and their children, that every day their children were exposed to this environment. When Chuck comes home and he brings in a state-of-the-art, high-performance jet aircraft, he becomes that corridor.
How you doing, Dad?
Took you long enough.
Chuck is still fighting many of the same battles his father fought. He is one of only 2 black Top Gun pilots in the Navy. Still, he's a personal victory for his first instructor, Chief Anderson.
God, it's good to see you. I love this guy. You want to climb in this thing, Chief?
Want to see this?
Yeah.
Come on, come on, come on.
When I checked into flight school, there were 100 of us, of which 5 of us were black.
No, it don't look like my bird.
I remember the commanding officer of the school's command telling us to look around us. Environmental controls. And he told us that 1 out of every 10 of us might get our wings.
As opposed to center stage.
And I remember looking around the room at the other guys, wondering who the other 9 were going to be.
Everybody has said that the Tuskegee Airmen experiment was a success. You didn't get a whole lot of people at the top rungs.
It was recognized up front from the beginning that this wasn't going to happen. We were talking about life opportunity, not job, life opportunity.
And life opportunity extends beyond the individual to the hopes of a people. Just a few weeks ago, part of what the Tuskegee Airmen fought and hoped for was realized. General Colin Powell, who came to Tuskegee to honor the airmen, was named chairman of the Joint Chiefs, America's top military officer.
One of the reasons I'm a 4-star general is that 40 to 50 years ago, there were others who were content just to serve and do their part in a segregated army, knowing they would never go above major.
But Powell's victory, while visible, is limited. The problem of racism in the military or anywhere else has not been solved.
You have to consider that racism is built into the very fabric of the American society. And most blacks are introduced to this very early. You know, I think I discovered that things were not quite as what they should be about the time I was 5 years old. And you start accommodating yourself to this because you've got to survive this for a very long time.
Part of that accommodation is realizing that no matter how successful you are, the threads of racism are tightly woven.
In the air, you're respected for what you do professionally. On the ground, there are individuals that you encounter that have attitude problems, attitude adjustment problems.
But these people here opened up doors for you.
Certainly do.
And yet, still, you're fighting the same battles they did.
That's correct, and unfortunately, my son is going to fight the same battles that I fight.
The battle will never be easy, but these black pioneers and thousands like them have identified the ingredients for success: realization of our individual potential and recognition of the potential of this country.
We as a people have to develop that winning attitude, to develop a sense of how to succeed in whatever ambition or whatever goals that we're going after. America needs to develop a winning attitude environment where a person is allowed to succeed.
When I was 6 years old and growing up in Chicago, I participated in the kind of experiment that I showed you at the beginning of this program. I was asked to choose between black dolls and white dolls. I chose the white doll. Perhaps it's understandable, it was 40 years ago. But in the 1960s, we proclaimed black is beautiful. So it came as a great shock to me that today, little black children are still choosing white images as nicer, prettier, and smarter. How can we as black people expect anyone to like us if we don't like ourselves? I decided as a mother to teach my 2 children to respect and love themselves.
Earlier, I talked to black men outside the Wabash building in Chicago who told me they were the targets of genocide. That fear is not new for us. Remember the slave ships, bondage, lynch mobs. Those were atrocities aimed at the destruction of our people. So it's understandable that the drug plague is seen as only the latest threat to black lives. But that threat extends beyond the inner cities. America must understand that when a black child is shot at the Wabash building, all of us are wounded. Young black men who place little value on their own lives are not likely to value the lives of anyone, black or white.
You know, in this very competitive world that we live in, racism really makes no sense. For racism means that America won't benefit from some of its best minds. And racism also means that some of America's best minds won't even try to succeed. There's a notion that white folks have done enough for black folks, but black people still remain the poorest and most segregated people in this land. So America, don't kid yourself. When it comes to black people, there's still a lot of unfinished business. Business that won't be completed until America begins to live up to the promise that it made to itself more than 200 years ago, that every individual is free to succeed or fail based on who they are and not what they are. That's our program for tonight. For Carole Simpson and Charles Thomas, I'm George Strait. Good night.
For a transcript, please send $4 to Black in White America, Journal Graphics 267 Broadway, New York, New York 10007. For a video cassette, send $29.95 plus $5 handling to this address or call 1-800-843-0048.
This has been a special presentation of ABC News, where more Americans get their news than from any other source.